This is Secret Stories, and my name is Mary Cachapalya. Many people cannot be on camera because their employer, their family, their friends, church, or synagogue would roll their eyes, ridicule, misunderstand, or even fire them. Secret Stories allow you to tell your story with anonymity. Here, I read experiencers' accounts emailed to us at Breaking the Silence. Here is Cody's account. My name is Cody, and this is my story. I was born and raised in the small town of Raymond, New Hampshire. It was October of 1999, and I was sitting in the living room with my family that included my older sister, my mom and dad, and me. We lived at the top of a cul-de-sac at the top of a dirt driveway. There were two houses between us and the road. The rest is untouched forest, which would come into play later. Back to the TV. I had an odd sense of being watched when I turned around and saw something behind us in the back door to the porch. It was tall, and I couldn't remember the face until many years later. Life was not the same after that. I remember covering my eyes and rolling on the floor into my bedroom. For some reason, I had the urge to smile, despite being horrified and confused and in fear. I remember my mother being scared when I was confronted of what just happened. I just said I saw a face looking in. Life would not be the same after the events that followed. I suddenly had trouble in school. I developed eye tics, or involuntary spasms of the eyes, and stomach aches that couldn't be explained. I also developed a speech impediment. I wouldn't talk much at all for a while. That severely impacted me. Doctors could not explain the sudden onslaught of so many issues. Fast forward about a year or so later, another incident. I had a set of 3 windows in my room, and I always closed the curtains at night. After a while, I stopped feeling the need to do so. I remember always looking up and to the left and feeling a strong urge to go in that direction. I will remind you that this is woodland that covers over 300 acres of untouched land that surrounds the house except for the driveway entry. One day, I woke up suddenly early in the morning, earlier than usual, and covered in sweat. I found that my feet were covered in blood, dirt, and scratches, also poison ivy. I looked at the floor first and saw that it was clean. Then I looked to the window and the door. The door was still locked, but my window was open, and the screen had been removed. There wasn't any dirt or blood on the floor, just my feet and bed were muddy and dirty. My feet were torn open as if I had ran miles through the woods. Perplexed by this, I didn't say anything, as I don't sleepwalk or wander off, and I didn't know how to explain it at the time. I would eventually get answers. Fast forward to when I was about 14 or 15 years old. I was exploring trails in the woods with my friends on dirt bikes. There's a lot of historical sites around here. Then I came across an opening and slammed on my brakes. I was hit with an overwhelming array of senses that I've never experienced before. I noticed my friend stopped a bit ahead of me, looking back and gesturing a confused shrug. I looked at him and had no words. I was crying, and crying set in. Then turned around and cut the trip short and went home as I didn't know what to say. The next odd experience was many years later. I was in my late 20s when I had a similar feeling of being watched. I was camping alone at a secluded spot called Round Pond at Pawtuckaway State Park. I was there to sleep overnight in my truck and fish. I started seeing something very out of place. I was cooling down in the pond, swimming. It was probably 1 in the morning. There's only one way in, and I knew I was alone. I was far from anyone and deep in the park. My attention became drawn to what I can only describe as a soft yellow glowing pole, maybe 3 feet long and 6 inches in thickness, moving sideways slowly and methodically through the trees in the distance. As it got closer, I had that same feeling as a kid. I swam to my truck, started it up, and just watched it. I knew something was off, and I hightailed it out of there. I was half naked in a towel. I almost crashed on the long gravel trail that led to safety. After all these encounters and time passing, I came across a friend of mine whose wife is a lawyer and had an encounter of her own in Raymond as well. She suggested I see a certain someone. Expensive, but worth it, she said. 4 years later, I took her advice, and over 3 sessions of hypnotic regression, I recalled nearly all of it. The face, the spot in the woods, I found that my gut was right. I don't share this with many people, partly because I don't have all the answers, but now it's time to break my silence. Since then, I've spent a lot of money and time researching. I'm trying to find out more. I have since purchased thermal image devices, infrared cameras, other cameras, telescopes, lasers, tri-field meters, and anything else that may help me come to a conclusion on reality that I'm left with. It's been mostly quiet since then. I'm now in my 30s, and I feel like this needs to be shared. There's a lot more details and history that is relevant to this that I left out to keep this fairly short. This is a long line of encounters on my father's side that he has recently shared with me. And New Hampshire is a special place when it comes to these topics. Like the Betty and Barney Hill case, the first cigar-shaped UFO photographed was on Mount Washington, the Exeter incident, and a lot more. I would love to talk with you guys and find a way to maybe share this in a fair manner. I do worry about my job and family. Thank you for reading it. It felt good writing this down. As I never intended to share this, keep up the good work. Your message is spreading and gaining traction. And I would love to somehow contribute somehow. Anyway, that's the short version. I hope to keep in touch. Thanks again, Cody. Cody. I went to high school in Exeter and remember the Exeter incident well. It actually took place in Newfields where we lived. When I was there, you could still see the burned mark in the back of the school where it landed. Thank you so much for your story, and one so close to where I had lived. Thank you for sharing your accounts with us. It takes guts to share your account, and when you feel ready, I will share your story for you. This is Mary Kachapalia. May love and light be with you.